On the show this week, it's the Jeep we've all been waiting for. We've exclusively driven the Jeep Compass in India. Also on the show, we get you our first impression of the Volvo XC60 and tell you about the new Mercedes-Benz E220D.
American icon Jeep came to India last year with a bunch of pricey imports. And that really didn't leave much of an impression. But come August will come this car and the real shock and awe. The new Compass isn't just tailor-made for India, it's manufactured here too, which will mean Jeep will be able to give you a competitive price. We've got a car nice and early. Let's see how good it is. First up, let's take a quick look at the sharp cut suit this baby Grand Cherokee has on. Now, to be honest, silver isn't the most fetching color, but it does allow the lines to come shining through. The well-defined shoulder line, the sharp lines on the bonnet, and those tough-looking square wheel arches. The focus, of course, is on the 7-slot grille and those slightly sunken headlights that work really well. But there's also a hint of ungainliness, especially from certain angles. And this is due to the short bonnet and the long cabin. And if you think about it, the wheels really should have been a bit bigger. Still, there are some extremely well-executed details like the shark fin-like D-pillar, and I really do like the way the roof drops towards the rear in an almost Range Rover Evoque-like manner. DNA test done, I peer under the chin. The clearance is huge, and Jeep engineers have included a clever vertical cut in the plastic air dam that folds and allows the chin to clear obstacles it otherwise has no business tackling. But what's it like on the inside? Is it comfortable? Is it well built? Is it well equipped? So quite a big step up when you get in. This floor of the Jeep is pretty high, but once you're in here, what an interior. Jeep has really hit the ball out of the park, and it's not something we expected. Plenty of good quality stuff. Look at this metallic finish here. The fantastic leather seats, they really look like they're straight off an expensive Mercedes or BMW luxury car. Nice soft feel dash, nicely laid out instrument panel. Yes, there are some things that do irritate, like this shiny plastic here. The screen isn't too big and it doesn't function too well. You got to hit everything twice. Well, it worked the first time now. But overall, tremendous quality, a great luxury feel, and not something we expected. There truly is an honest-to-God luxury car vibe here. Jeep has been bold and specified this top-of-the-line limited 4x4 variant with a premium alpine leather interior. The soft and supple seats are finished in snow white. It won't be easy to keep clean, but the seats feel just so luxurious. High-quality stain removers are quite easy to come by these days. There is a bit of reflection from the dials, and the storage space on the center console is a bit limited. But otherwise, the cabin is quite practical. Space on the inside is huge with plenty of leg and shoulder room, and the front seats are very comfortable. The rear seat has also been optimized for India and China. Now I'm sitting in the back of the Compass, and yet again, like the front, Jeep have done a tremendous job. Plenty of leg room here, so you're quite comfortable, a good amount of headroom. It's a nice wide cabin, and also this seat has been specially redone for India. There's a lot more thigh support, as you can see. The backrest is redone. It's a little bit upright, but it's still extremely comfortable. You also get a couple of goodies here. You get a USB charger, and you also get these two vents. Now, these vents are not controllable. You can't control the airflow, but all in all, an extremely competitive rear seat package. There's also plenty of safety kit. 4-channel ABS and ESP are obviously present and standard, but you also get panic brake assist, brake booster failure compensation, roll mitigation, brake pre-fill, and even 6 airbags. Jeep, however, has knocked out a bit of essential kit. Sure, you get 4-wheel drive and select terrain, but there's no low range for the 4x4 system, and there's no diesel automatic yet. There's no sunroof, no auto headlights, no auto wipers, and you don't get auto dimming mirrors either. A 9-speed automatic gearbox though is expected towards the end of the year. You do however get an electric handbrake that only disengages if you have your seatbelt on. Nice! But now it's time to get going. Time to get behind the wheel and see just how well this Jeep drives. First up, the ride. Now the Compass has hydraulic rebound stops, heavy acoustic wheel liners, triple door seals and auto adjusting dampers, all so that this car rides comfortably and silently.
On its high suspension, ride comfort is also pretty good. There is a bit of a firm layer, a slight firm layer that when you hit some sharp edges shows up, but otherwise this Jeep with its ground clearance, its wide stance and its tires can just roll over anything at almost any speed.
Overall ride comfort in fact is extremely comfy, but the small wide 4x4 platform that the Compass is built on comes from Fiat, and we all know how its cars ride, don't we? There's a hill section coming up, so I get ready to catch a few corners. Straight line stability is superb, and from what I've experienced, steering feel is quite impressive too. But as I get stuck into the corners, there is a bit of body roll.
Now this is a tall SUV and that means, yes, it will roll a bit. But Jeep have found such a nice setup, such a good balance between ride and handling. You just enjoy the road before you.
The crazy bit is that this SUV actually enjoys corners. The brakes give you a lot of confidence, and the steering compensates for pull and drift, just like the one on the earlier generation Fiesta. It's accurate and full of feel. What also gels nicely with the Compass is Fiat's second generation Multijet Diesel. This 2000cc engine makes its debut in India under the hood of the Compass and produces around 170 horsepower. These Series 2 engines use 7 injections of diesel per power stroke and as a result are a bit more refined, but there's still a bit of pitter-patter at idle.
There is a bit of lag when you put your foot down at around 1000 RPM, but by 2000 the power really comes in. It pulls hard all the way to 4.5 or 5000 RPM, and that slug of torque you get around 3000, well, that's just magic.
While performance is strong, the Compass is best enjoyed a couple of notches down from flatter.
So of course the best way to drive this Multijet is in the mid-range. And what lets you do that is this nicely set up gearbox. It's light, it's very precise, and although the throw is a bit long and you do have to move your hand, it is so good, you just forget about it and concentrate on driving.
It will, however, cruise happily between 130 and 140 kilometers an hour. And press on and there's a lot more power available. Jeep, however, is yet to sign off on the state of tune of this engine. And the noise levels and the flow of power could improve once this is done. I leave the little bit of off-roading I'm going to do for last. Turn into some barren fields and then head up the next hill. Only thing is, I do it the short way. Cross some bunds, over a rocky ledge and then up a steep incline.
Now this is a Jeep and of course this one gets a 4-wheel drive system, but it isn't full-time 4-wheel drive. What you can do, however, when you come upon an obstacle like this, a serious looking obstacle, is either stop and choose 4-wheel drive lock or put it in one of the auto modes, snow, sand and mud, and well, the Compass will take care of it for you. It's a bit tough, and here's an even tougher challenge which I think it's going to manage quite beautifully.
And the other thing that strikes me after a day of driving around is just how tough it feels.
I've been driving the Compass all morning and all afternoon, but the one thing that really stays with me is the solid tank-like build of this car. Now we're used to saying that the Germans build the toughest cars, they build the strongest cars, but this Yank here, this American, this Jeep, well, it's built like a Sherman tank. No exaggeration. It just is bloody tough.
Comfortable, well-built, capable off-road and nice to drive on it. The Compass is an SUV that seems to deliver so much more than your regular SUV. In fact, look deep into its headlights, past that 7-slot grille, and you can all but see the years and years of know-how shine through. Likely to be introduced in India at a price of between 23 and 24 lakhs for this fully loaded version, the Compass is expected to hit showrooms sometime in August. Sure, the raised ride height means you need a big step up to get into the cabin. The touchscreen isn't really up to what's expected of a car in this class, and there are some important bits missing, like the sunroof. And then there's Fiat's service network to contend with. Still, the Compass delivers so much SUV for the money, it just may be the value luxury SUV you've been waiting for.
Volvo's on a bit of a roll these days, and its latest cars like the XC90 SUV and the S90 sedan have really taken the game forward. And we now have this SUV, the Volvo XC60. Now this isn't a 7-seater but a smaller 5-seater, and it goes head-on with the Audi Q5, the BMW X3 and the Mercedes GLC. Can it give the Germans something to worry about? Well, it certainly looks the part. The new Volvo XC60 is longer, wider and lower than the model it replaces. It's not very imposing but does look chunky and attractive nonetheless. The elegant design is unquestionably new age Volvo, and the headlights with the Thor hammer LED signature are similar to the 90 series Volvos. At the rear, however, the new XC60 has unique L-shaped taillights which set it apart. India will get the top spec inscription trim that comes with an extra dose of chrome. The car I'm driving has 20-inch alloys, but for India, 19-inch alloy wheels will be offered as standard.
Now the door doesn't open wide enough, so the narrow opening does make getting in and out a little inconvenient. But once I'm here in the backseat of the XC60, everything is just spot on. The seats are superbly comfortable, great under thigh support, great lower back support, very well bolstered. The only one short change is the middle passenger, because really there isn't enough space over here, and also the transmission tunnel does come in the way. But I think what's really blown me away is the level of quality in this cabin. All the materials, the plastics, the fabrics, all the finishes, really top class. This is easily the best cabin in its class and really blows away its rivals.
Trimmed in Napa leather and fine wood, and with those lovely knurled dials, the cabin looks and feels really plush. Again, the centerpiece of the smart dashboard is the 9-inch portrait-oriented touchscreen. You sit at a nice enough height and visibility is good, but you won't find yourself towering over other cars. In true Volvo fashion, the sculpted front seats offer exemplary comfort. Now let's see what it's like to drive. Now the XC60, it's been launched internationally with multiple engine options, but in India we will be initially getting only the 2-liter D5 diesel. Now in D5 spec it produces 235 horsepower, and that is pretty impressive. Now think about it, the XC90 uses the same engine, but that's around 200 kilos heavier. So power to weight ratio in the XC60 really terrific. In fact, it competes really well with its rivals as well, the X3 and the GLC. And you can feel it, performance is really effortless. It's so smooth, it just wafts you to speeds very, very quickly. It doesn't quite have that punchy mid-range of a BMW motor, but this car is really more about effortless cruising, effortless performance, and the XC60 really delivers on all those fronts. And the good thing is that this motor comes with Volvo's innovative Power Pulse technology. Volvo has done a lot to reduce noise levels of this diesel engine, and that's immediately obvious. This 2-liter engine is incredibly refined as well, very, very quiet, doesn't quite have that smoothness of a 6-cylinder, but overall noise levels are really incredibly low. And even just cruising at around 2,500 RPM, there's barely a murmur from under the hood. So here I am in the Spanish countryside, and these beautiful mountain roads are an absolute delight to drive on. Now, to be honest, the XC60 hasn't really been designed for these twisty bits, but what I can tell you that there's a certain reassurance this car gives, a certain confidence you get from him. The car is a little softly sprung. Even in dynamic mode, it's not quite stiff enough, and it does tend to roll a fair bit. So it's not as engaging or entertaining to drive as an X3 for sure. So the XC60's handling, well, it isn't particularly sporty or sharp. It doesn't like to really dart into corners, but the upside is fantastic ride quality. In fact, I think the ride on this car is by far the best in class. And you just feel like you're just riding on a cushion of air. In fact, you are, because this car gets air suspension. And air suspension is going to be standard on the XC60 in India, because Volvo are going to launch this model in only the top-end inscription version, which comes with all the bells and whistles. And feature-packed is what the Volvo is. Just look at that list of features, which is far more than what the competition offers. And as you can see, there's a special focus on safety. The coolest feature though is the pilot assist. So I've got the pilot assist switched on in the XC60, and it's quite amazing because not only am I driving with my feet off, but technically I can even drive with my hands off. But I'm not doing that because it's not recommended. But I can feel the steering lightly pulling and keeping me in the lane. As the road curves, the steering also gently flows with it. It is quite disconcerting, but it really works. It's as if the steering has a mind of its own. Really amazing. But this is the technology. This is the way driver assistance is going now. I mean, just look at this. Just look at the way it's keeping the lane. Frankly, I'm taking my hands off for a moment. Shouldn't be doing that, but yeah, there you go. It really does manage to just keep the lane. So we've had feet off with cruise control, hands off with these driver assist system, and who knows, in the future with fully autonomous driving, you could drive with your eyes off the road. Volvo hasn't confirmed the launch date for the XC60 in India, but we expect it to arrive in showrooms around Diwali this year in time for the festive season. And what about pricing? It's fair to assume that like other Volvos, this one will be priced very competitively as well. And for this fully loaded version, expect it to cost in the region of 55 lakh rupees. So what's it like after a long day in the XC60? In a word, brilliant. What I like is the honesty with which it goes about its business. It doesn't pretend to be a sporty or involving car to drive, which it isn't. This car is all about comfort and safety. And Volvo is proudly tom-tomming its best-in-class features. But they forgot to mention the most important safety device for India. But don't worry, it's right here.
Now, when we first reviewed the new Mercedes E-Class, the car we drove was the E350D, the one with the diesel V6. This one, however, is the one we've really been waiting for. It's the E220D. And why is that? Well, for one, it's a whole lot more affordable than the E350D. And two, it debuts Mercedes' brand new 2-litre 4-cylinder diesel engine, an engine that will soon make its way throughout the Merc range. Well, the car has just been launched and we've got a chance to get behind the wheel. First up, there are almost no changes on the outside. You still get the same regal, stretched look with the big star on the grille and the signature double-slash LED headlamps. And at the back, apart from the 220D badge, there's nothing to tell it apart from the V6 version. The only difference is this set of 5-spoke alloy wheels, the same size but a different design. Even on the inside, it seems not much has changed. The wood on the dash is a lighter color, the Artico upholstery has a different pattern, and that's about it. But dig a bit deeper and you'll find that some equipment is missing. There's no memory function for the front seats, there's no Burmester hi-fi audio, and there's only a rear view camera rather than a surround camera. However, you still get the panoramic sunroof, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and of course that incredibly spacious and comfortable back seat with the pillow headrest and the reclining backrests. But that's all on the surface. Let's find out what's under the skin. So let's get right to the heart of the matter, the new motor. It's a 2-litre 4-cylinder diesel engine that makes 194 horsepower and 400 Newton meters of torque. Now, while the torque figure may be the same as the outgoing 220D motor, the power is considerably higher. Those numbers also put it right on par with the competition. But how does that all translate on the road? Well, I'm happy to report that this engine makes a very good first impression, and that's because it sounds a whole lot more refined than the outgoing 2.1-litre diesel motor. It's very quiet at lower revs. Sure, it does wake up with a bit of noise at about 2,500 RPM, but even then, it's not an ugly clatter, but instead a really, really nice sounding rumble. Performance feels more than adequate for this size of car, and even up against our testing equipment, it recorded a rather solid time of 8.81 seconds from 0 to 100 kph. Yes, that time makes it about 1.8 seconds slower than the V6 powered 350D, but when it comes to kickdown acceleration for overtaking, the two are much closer. Now, brilliant as ever is Mercedes' 9-speed automatic transmission. It always has a ratio ready for you, and you can barely tell it's there. That's how smoothly and seamlessly it shifts gears. So, the powertrain is a very pleasant surprise, but what about the rest of the oily bits? Now, another crucial mechanical difference is that while the big E350D has air suspension at all 4 corners, this car uses standard steel springs at all 4 corners. So how has that affected the ride quality? In this department too, I gotta say I am pretty impressed. It's got none of that firmness of the C-Class, and yet it still manages to maintain a good amount of body control over bumps. Sure, it lacks that pillowy, soft, magic carpet ride that you get with the air suspension, but the flip side is that you don't get any of that float over undulations and at high speeds, so really it's a very good compromise. The rear suspension is a bit softer than the front, and that means the CEO might get moved around a bit more than his chauffeur. No air suspension also means no adjustable dampers, and you can't raise the car at the touch of a button for a speed bump. But in most scenarios, we found that it handled them just fine nonetheless. And finally, the handling. The steering is very light at low speeds, and it weighs up really nicely when you put it into Sport or Sport Plus mode. It's also quite sharp and accurate, but really this car on the whole is not one for corners, and that's mostly to do with its enormous size. There is quite a bit of body roll, but it's less than we expected, and certainly not as much as you get in the air suspension equipped E350D. Like the engine then, the dynamic package of this E220D has proved to be surprisingly good. Now, when the new E-Class was launched, there was clearly a massive gap in the model range. Sure, the petrol version was a little bit more affordable, but then if you wanted a diesel, you'd have to make a massive jump to the E350D. This car fixes that problem, being a whole lot cheaper than the E350D and not a whole lot more than the petrol model. What's more, it retains all the E-Class traits, especially that tremendous back seat. The engine is quite superb. It's very refined and powerful enough. And when you couple that with improved running costs and a rather stellar ride quality, we really believe that this car has the potential to become the mainstay and the popular choice in the E-Class range.